Welcome to episode 7 of the Kayvman Show. We're still discussing nutrition. We're picking up where we left off last time, which was we were transitioning into talking about plants, plant-based eating, what plants you should and shouldn't eat, and why exactly. So yeah, just to set the table here, we're told very much in our society, Western society, that is, modern Western society, it's 2024, that, to eat more plants, eat less meat, and that plant-based living is the way to go, and so on. So there is a counter to that now growing, and I would say I'm kind of part of that counter, just to spoil the end of this episode. I think there's great merit to it. I respect plant-based eating, and I respect people who don't eat meat, don't eat animal products for ethical reasons or whatever. Although that would be a separate podcast. I don't agree with the ethical debate either. But for now, we're talking about health and fitness. So, should you go plant-based? And if not, what plants should you eat? Should you eat zero plants? So there is also an extreme on the other side where people talk about you should only eat meat. That's the only food. You shouldn't touch plants. We're not evolved to eat plants, and we shouldn't. We don't do well with plants. And as ever, when you have two extremes, oftentimes the answer kind of lies in the middle. We are human beings, right? And we are omnivores, okay? We are evolved to eat both meat and plants. That is probably why we are so successful. That's why we dominate essentially the planet, is because we can eat both meat and plants. Anyone who tells you that we're not evolved to eat meat is, is wrong. I don't know what to tell you. It's delusional, really. Is very wrong. Very, very, very wrong. Even poorer health outcomes to societies where they don't eat meat or dairy or eggs or anything like that. It's not a good look. It doesn't work because we have evolved to eat meat. When we talk about evolved, human beings have been around for at least 100,000 years as human beings, and before that as earlier forms of primates. I forget which ones, but Homo erectus and a bunch of other stuff. But going back, we've been primates for a very, very, very long time, and we've been eating meat for a very, very, very long time, probably from before we were humans. And if you look at our digestive system, it's among the most acidic in the animal kingdom, and that is because we have evolved to digest meat, right? Meat is the hardest thing to digest, or rather, it needs the most acid to digest, and particularly old meat, actually. So our stomachs are similar to scavengers, even more so than pure carnivores like a hunter. Our stomachs are evolved like scavengers. So we are evolved to eat, I don't want to say rotting, but older meat. Less fresh meat. That is what we have been adapted to eat. There's an argument that our teeth look a bit more like cows' teeth, and they're vegans. Actually, they're not fully vegans. They do eat bone from time to time. They'll eat the bone of their fellow cows to get calcium. There's a little tidbit for you. But okay, essentially they are herbivores, you could say. And so because our teeth look more like cows, which I don't even think they do, and our mouth doesn't work like cows' mouths work. Our mouths don't go side to side. We chew up and down. So because our teeth look like cows, that we are herbivores. I'm just coming up with some of the things that the plant-based vegan people say as why we are evolved to eat only plants and not animals. And for example, a wolf has sharp canines. That speaks to the fact that we have fashioned tools to kill our prey, and we don't kill our prey with our teeth, but we do chew our prey with our teeth. We do eat our prey with our teeth. We eat meat with our teeth. We have canines that help to cut meat in our mouths. So the only reason we don't have a mouth like a lion, for example, is because we have spears and rocks and flint tools that kill and cut our meat for us. So this would be a separate podcast. I don't want to go too far into the anthropology. I do love it personally, and I think it's a really interesting exploration, and maybe I'll get someone who's a lot smarter than me on this subject to talk about. But essentially, we are evolved to eat meat. Then you look at the other side and you look at people who say that we are evolved only to eat meat, and that has a little bit more credence. I've actually gone fully carnivore, meaning only meat and animal products. So I would have eggs and dairy and meat, and primarily red meat. And I did fine, actually. I did perfectly fine. I didn't have any issues. I did need to supplement with electrolytes for athletic performance. Like I would cramp in the gym, specifically in the gym. I would get cramps without supplementing with electrolytes. Some people say just having more salt would do it. And I guess evolutionarily that would make sense, because if we were to kill an animal fresh, it would have much higher electrolyte content. We'd be eating the meat with the blood, and the blood would contain a lot of electrolytes fact, it would contain small amounts of sugar too if we were to eat meat. So in the form of glycogen or glucose. So yes, we would probably have a better electrolyte balance if we were eating wild meats and eating it fresh. So that could be an argument. But aside from that, I didn't have any issues, and I did it for at least a year straight of just pure meat, not touching any plants. So I don't think that there's any massive problems, but I do think there's a huge benefits to eating some plants. And also, if you think about our evolution, we have evolved from herbivores, and if you look at all the other primates, we are a form of primate, not a form of monkey per se, but we are very closely related to chimpanzees and monkeys, particularly bonobos and chimpanzees. Both of them are mostly herbivores. They mostly eat fruit, but that also includes insects. So they eat a lot of insects, they eat a lot of fruit, and they do have meat. And when they do have meat, they love meat, okay? So I'm talking about chimpanzees here, I'm not sure about bonobos. But our closest primate cousins, the closest animals to us, do eat meat. They don't eat huge amounts of it, but when they do, they love it. And it's very, very important to chimpanzees. Actually. Like meat sharing actually dictates all the kind of politics of chimpanzee life. Again, another podcast. But yeah, essentially, I'm making the case here that we are evolved to eat both meat and plants. And our stomach can digest plants very well, but only particular types of plants. So this is where we're going with this. What plants are we evolved to eat? I'm just going to tell you straight off the bat, it's fruits and not vegetables. What is the difference between fruit and vegetable? Okay, a vegetable in this context, and I actually think in the scientific context, is all the parts of a plant. Right, so there's a plant here. Yep. All the parts of a plant that are not the fruit. Okay. So that's the root, that's the stem, that is the leaf, that is the nut or the seed. I think that's it. Maybe there's some other parts. But basically all the parts that are not the fruit. What is the fruit? The fruit is the fruiting body. It is the reproductive part of the plant. And not to get too far into the botany, not a botanist, but it's interesting. The fruit is the part that essentially that contains the seed that is used for its sexual or asexual reproduction. That is how it reproduces, is through the fruit, which will contain the seed and spread the seed. Okay, so I actually think a flower is technically a fruit because it's the reproductive element of plant. And just to keep it really, really simple without going into sort of edge cases, what pertains to us is a plant will evolve. Some plants have fruits. Not all plants have fruits in the way we think of them. But a plant, let's just say an apple tree, okay, a big red apple tree. Even though apples are actually kind of a man-made invention. Modern apples are a man-made invention. In nature, before human beings, apples were much smaller and much more sour, much less sweet. So these kind of hyper sweet fruits are a lot of times not really wild, they're man-made. But still, let's just say an apple tree. So you have a big green tree, and then you have these red apples. We've spoken about this before. It's red because it wants to get your attention. It's sweet because it wants you to eat it. And that is how it spreads the fruit. Now, what else is a fruit? Obviously, we've got apples, we've got bananas. Generally, it's the more colorful parts. There are some green fruits, but generally it's the more colorful parts. Things that are fruits that people don't realize are fruits. Olive, okay? An olive is a fruit and it contains the seed. It wants an animal to come and eat the fruit and spread the seed. A cucumber is a fruit. It contains seeds. A tomato is a fruit. It contains seeds. A banana is a fruit. It contains seeds, although I'm not sure what. Squash is a fruit. Avocado is a fruit. Okay, anything that contains the seeds that wants the seeds to be spread, that is the fruit. Why are we evolved to eat it? Why is it easy for us to eat it? Because we are working in concert with that plant. That plant wants that part of the plant to be eaten. Okay, it wants the apple to be eaten. It wants the squash to be eaten. It wants the mango to be eaten, and it wants to spread the seed. That is how the seed is spread, through animals. Okay, we're going to eat that fruit and spread it either through digestion or just physically, mechanically. We walk around, we eat it, we throw it. Okay, that's how it spreds the seed. And therefore, it does not evolve a tremendous amount of defense chemicals. Why would it? It doesn't want to defend that part. It will defend the seed, so it doesn't want you to eat the seed. At the very least, it would want that seed to pass through your digestive system intact, so it would make it kind of strong and resistant to digestion in that case. But it definitely doesn't want you to eat and destroy the seed. It wants the seed to live. Okay, it is its baby, right? It's protecting its baby, right? You can think of plants as having a mother and a baby. There's no reason why that isn't true. It is true. It's just not what we're used to thinking of it as. And it has a strategy, right? Just like every other animal has a strategy to pass on its genes to the next generation. No point in dropping a seed right where its roots are, right? It's not going to get space in the soil. It's not going to get water. It's not going to get sunlight. It's just not going to be able to compete with its own mother. So it wants the seed to spread. So that's the fruit. We have evolved to eat fruit because it doesn't have a tremendous amount of defense chemicals. Now, what about the other parts of the plant? Should we eat them or should we not? So there's a spectrum of plant toxicity, meaning how much defense chemicals, and what is the defense chemicals? Ultimately a pesticide, right? We are a pest to a plant if we are eating its leaves, right? Its leaves don't want to be eaten, so it needs its leaves for photosynthesis. So it's not just gonna let every animal eat it. So it makes itself very bitter to the taste, which tells us, hey, stop eating me. I don't want to be eaten. Piss off. Same thing with the stem, same thing with the root, and same thing with the seed. You wouldn't go and find a plant here and start chewing on it. It would taste like shit, right? Likewise, if you're in the jungle, you wouldn't go around the jungle just biting like leaves. You might bite it, taste that it's bitter, and then stop eating it. If you ignored that sense of bitterness, you would die, okay? If you went around eating just seeds and leaves and stems and roots in nature, you would die. Now, you can cook them, and that destroys a lot of the plant defense chemicals. Like, plants have not evolved very well to deal with fire. Fire is a relatively new invention. It's essentially it happens in nature, but it's not a common phenomenon until human beings came and created heat and fire to destroy plant defense chemicals. So you can cook it, but you're not going to cook away all the plant defense chemicals, right? If you go around eating raw kidney beans, if you go around eating raw almonds, if you go around eating raw apricot seeds, right? Eventually you'll die. Okay? These things are toxic. At the very least, you're going to get sick. It is not, you're going to war with that plant. The plant is very, very clear about which parts of itself it wants to be eaten, which parts it doesn't. Will you die from eating cooked Brussels sprouts? No. Will you suffer some negative health consequences? Yes. Is it worth the price, the nutrients that you get out of those Brussels sprouts or whatever it is? Because Brussels sprout is obviously a vegetable and not a fruit. It doesn't contain a seed. That's up to you. I'm not going to, you make your own decisions. Like, my wife still loves Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. I don't really care for it anymore. I've lost the taste for it. I remember when I used to eat Brussels sprouts, and provided it's cooked in, butter or olive oil and balsamic vinegar and, a bunch of salt on it, and it's, like how they do it in the restaurants, they deep fry it in oil. Yes, it's delicious, but that's mostly because of the oil and the other stuff you're putting on it. A steamed Brussels sprout, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Do I think that vegetables are what's killing us? Well, not in the way that we're thinking of it. Salads, lettuce, and stuff like that. That's not what's really driving our health down. But is it something you have to have? Absolutely not. Is it something that a lot of people don't do well with and would be better off getting rid of? Absolutely, because it has plant defense chemicals. It is essentially going to war with you. And what you'll notice is as soon as you get rid of vegetables from your diet, you'll notice bloat going down. And that's because your gut is having to go to war to fight the defense chemicals, to fight with the plant. The plant strategy is, okay, you can eat me because I can't run away, right? I can't kick you, I can't bite you, I can't defend myself physically, but I can defend myself chemically. So fine, eat me, but I'm going to take you down with me, right? I'm not going to make this easy, right? Just to deter people from eating it in the future. And it's a very good strategy. Plants evolved millions of years before human beings, before animals. They were here before any type of animal. And a good thing too, because all animal life on our planet depends on plants. If we overate plants and it didn't have these defenses, we'd all be dead. We'd eat ourselves to death because we would destroy the source of our nutrients. Even if we were to just eat meat, human beings eat cow eats the grass, and the grass essentially eats the sun. There's this perfect cycle, right? Or at least chain, I'm not sure it's cycle. And then we die and we go back to the grass. We feed the grass. We decompose, and then, worms and whatever come and eat us, and we go back to the soil. And that is the cycle. Yeah, those plants do not want to be eaten. What you'll notice is your gut, you'll lose a little bit of bloat by getting rid of vegetables. And that's because you're not going to war with plants anymore. Now, some fruits also do this to people. They bloat people. Usually the first few days of reintroducing plants like fruits back into your system, you might find some bloat just because you don't have the enzymes to digest it, but usually bloat goes away with fruit. You do have to be careful because fruit has high amounts of fructose, which we said is a safe and healthy thing to eat for humans in nature, but high amounts of it can cause like gut issues. But what you'll notice with plants is over time, if you stop eating plants, a lot of bloat and digestive issues will go away. That is the norm. That's what I found with my clients, and it makes perfect sense evolutionarily because you're no longer ingesting large amounts of plant defense chemicals and having to go to war with these plants. We did speak about nuts and seeds in the last one. I'm just going to leave you with this. Nuts and seeds are the most highly defended parts of a plant because it is the baby, right? It's literally a whole life form. It is a whole living being in a tiny little seed or a nut, right? An almond turns into an almond tree, right? An acorn turns into an oak tree. There is abundant life in that tiny little thing. So yes, it has nutrients because it is a life form, right? It has all the blueprint to grow. It does have nutrients. So when they say, and clever nut companies, their marketing is, oh, nuts are so healthy for you, heart healthy, blah, 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 fiber, and this magnesium. Of course it has all these things, but it also has anti-nutrients, meaning things like phytic acid and various other compounds and chemicals that chelate, meaning they bind to nutrients in your body and they cause havoc in your system. And that's why nuts are super, super inflammatory. Nuts will literally kill people. I mean, peanut, which is technically a legume, not interesting, but whatever, let's just call it a nut, will literally kill, people have nut allergies. They will kill, it's dangerous, right? People can die from things like nut allergies. And that is because no one has a meat allergy. That is because the nuts do not want to be eaten. It is a baby. It is going to defend itself. And some people can handle that defense and some people can't. But nobody is going to thrive off of eating large amounts of nuts. They are very inflammatory. We've already spoken about omega-6s and linoleic acid. They are super, super abundant in omega-6s. This idea that they have like omega-3s, if you look at the omega-3 to 6 ratio in the highest omega-3 nut, which is the walnut that has the highest amount of omega-3, it's still super, super low. It's still super high in omega-6s. It's still super inflammatory. It has loads of plant defense chemicals. It is a disaster. We have to do all these things. We have to roast them and salt them and soak them and do all this stuff to make them palatable. And they still don't taste that good, to be honest with you. So yeah, absolutely get rid of nuts. Are they healthy? No, they're not healthy. They are the least healthy parts of a plant. You get things like roots that are probably fine for most people, provided you get rid of the skin. Things like sweet potato and potato. A lot of people seem to garlic. People seem to do pretty well with them. Onions, if you cook them, like fried onions, they're probably fine because they're underground and they haven't evolved that many plant defense chemicals because they're underground, so they don't have to defend themselves as much as something overground does. But yeah, just to put a bow in it, plants don't want to be eaten. You should be very selective about which ones you do eat. I recommend fruits just as a really easy, put a pin in this thing. Eat fruits, avoid vegetables, all the non-fruit parts of a plant, and you should be good to go. In the next episode, we're going to try to start to put a bow in this nutrition thing. We're going to be on episode 8, so we're going to try to wrap it up before episode 10 and then move on to training. We will talk about just sort of natural eating, why it's a really good kind of shortcut for just being fit and healthy, and what the positive benefits of eating as nature intended are. And then we're going to talk about the square, which is the crowning the crowning achievement of all this type of eating, and a very solid practical way for you to get in sick shape and stay in shape forever. All right, see you in the next one. Peace.